Hello, Mr. Fusion here, back for more of my initial impressions of Dragon Ball Daima. Completely unscripted, just my off-the-top-of-the-head thoughts, so let's go ahead and give a quick recap of the episode. Goku and the gang have to fight off some guards, they remove Pansy's slave collar, they find the first Ball Guardian, and Goku prepares to fight said Ball Guardian. Also, Vegeta's group gets into the demon realm, and that's pretty much it, actually. So before we get into it, if you don't know, I am a YouTuber. I do scripted reviews on all kinds of things, including Sailor Moon, Batman, Star Wars, Star Trek, Power Rangers, and of course Dragon Ball with my ongoing series Dragon Ball Dissection, which has been going on for almost 13 years. So please give me a like and a comment and a subscribe if you're able. And now let's get to it. I have been seeing the criticism a lot over the past week that this show is moving too slowly. And to an extent, I do agree with that. I've talked a lot about how the show is not always economically using its time, usually in service of having characters dump out exposition that would be better served incorporating it into the story better. But at the same time, I'm not having a bad time with this show. Each episode I'm coming away with stuff I'm thinking about and feeling fully entertained. It's impossible for me to see this from a larger perspective at this point because I haven't seen all of it, but I'm definitely not as bored as I was when I was getting into the last several months of Dragon Ball Super, so that is definitely something. Admittedly, we are still in that kind of newness factor area where there is a novelty to the show and its premise and not knowing where it's going. But this in particular was a very slow episode as well, and I certainly have some criticisms about that, but I still had a good time. But I really don't know if I have all that much to say about this one. I have divided my notes into elements that are story-related and elements that are trivia-related, and I almost think that the trivia-related stuff ends up outnumbering the story stuff. I don't know if that means it's going to outnumber the amount of time I spend on each, but I feel like there's a lot of stuff in this episode that, like, the YouTubers will want to make videos about, a lot of new information, but not nearly as much in terms of story, but there were still some things that caught my interest. So I'm going to go ahead and start on the story stuff. So almost as soon as the heroes get started, they are pulled over, escorted to the ground by the Kempeitai, the gendarmerie, the military police, whatever you want to call them. And right away, I was excited about this because the point of tension is that the other characters don't want the guards to see Goku. He's already wanted. They've already had a run-in with them in the previous episode where Goku happened to be absent. And so they're doing their best not to tie Goku to themselves. Otherwise, they'll all be wanted and it'll make their lives a lot harder. And this was really cool to me because, and I'm sure I've said this in Dragon Ball Dissection at various points, when you have characters who can just beat their way out of anything, it's hard to create obstacles for them to overcome. And it's hard to come up with obstacles that need solutions that aren't beat people up. But this seemed like it had potential. The idea that they need to keep a low profile, that they're trying to fly a ship through this terrain, and it's going to be a huge pain in the butt if they have the entire, military police arm chasing after them. That's great. So what do? And this is actually pretty clever too. Everybody but Goku leaves the ship, and then when the Kempeitai get on board the ship to search it, Goku simply teleports to Kaioshin, and that's how they managed to get around that. And I love that. And on top of that, the added conflict is they realize the whole reason the Kempeitai have been able to find them is because of Pansy's collar. They scanned it in the previous episode, so now they're able to track it wherever they go. So now the Kempeitai are able to track it wherever the heroes go. Those are both very good things. They are very good things that the show immediately discards. Like, they introduce both of these things and then immediately move past them, and that is a little bit annoying to me. Because ultimately, Exhibit A and Exhibit A Exhibit A and Exhibit B kind of intersect. Because they have been tracking her collar, the Kim-Pei-Tai want to take Pansy in for questioning regardless, so the jig is up, they have to beat up everybody, etc., etc. And then immediately after that, Kaioshin uses his magic to just break Pansy's collar. So, no more stealth, and no more tracking. The two things that I came into this feeling this would make the story more interesting were immediately dealt with and shoved aside. It frustrates me. I'm not saying the whole story needs to be stealth, but I feel like it'd be better served if they'd introduced this and then let it play out for a while until the situation escalates later down the road to the point where they have to act with force and therefore put themselves in greater danger because of it. But to bring it up and then immediately get past it, I don't care for that. That said, it is nice to get some confirmation that Kaioshin is not completely useless. Everybody always says he is, and clearly he can fight, and that's nice. And I have mixed feelings about the collar scenario, because, again, that would be, a nice kind of albatross. That they're on the run, that there's no way they can be completely safe, and to bring in a dilemma of, is Pansy worth the trouble of lugging around? I mean, Glorio already seems like he didn't really care to have her here in the first place. So, bring up some tension there. But instead, they bring up this thing that could threaten to bring drama into the story, and then they just do away with it. However, there are some elements about this and surrounding this that I like. One is the fact that Kaioshin having a spell that can destroy the collars, and that he says that anybody can do this, really sort of posits this as a liberation story, that there is an underclass, the citizens of the third demon world, who are being oppressed by an upper class. And now that it's been shown that the characters can and will defy that and break characters out of bondage, well, it seems like this is heading for the kind of story where it's going to end with the third demon world being liberated by our heroes. And if not, it's going to be very disappointing. And I like that. I like that they're exploring a topic like that. And I also like, it's tying into this, but on a more micro level. The way that Pansy describes her collar is actually, it's one line, and it's the one thing that stuck with me more than anything else in this episode. Like, this honestly might be a complete throwaway episode for me if not for this one line. And I will admit, this is not something I was able to identify any Japanese words for. I don't have any insight into this, but it does seem very unlikely to me. The subtitles would have had to have really rewritten this for the meaning of what I'm about to say to change. Goku asks Pansy about the collar, and she says that citizens of the third demon world have to wear them because there are a lot of unruly Majin. And I think that is fascinating. Dragon Ball is a fairly simplistic good and evil show, and I feel like the standard way of framing an event like this would be to say, oh, these evil guys are making us do this. And, that's true. That's very, very true. But if you were an oppressive government, and you were trying to persecute an underclass, how would you frame that? Well, by blaming the oppressed. Pansy says there are unruly Majin almost certainly because that's what she has been fed. Even as she's fighting against these systems, she has still been indoctrinated by them. And, it's not a huge deal necessarily. It's just a line, but I love that they wrote it that way. Like, it comes across much more naturalistically and much less, a scriptwriter wrote this. It came across as something that her character would actually say. And I have to go back and look at this again, but I feel like the way she was drawn in that moment conveyed the tiniest bit of shame. Because yeah, the best way to oppress somebody is to make the oppressed feel like it's their fault for being oppressed. You're a danger to us, you're bad, you're wrong, we have to do this. And so yeah, that ties into what I was talking about this seeming to be a liberation type narrative. And again, I've said from the beginning that this show has struggled with having naturalistic dialogue and exposition. And this one line knocks it out of the park. Like, this is something that a person would say. It conveys so much with so little. This is how you tell a story. Yay, I'm going to applaud you. Clap, 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 clap. There we go. Yay. Speaking of framing, I also like that Pansy frames Goku's teleportation, his Shunkanido, as his form of magic. That's also a nice little coming around on that one, because she'd been asking before what his magic is, and he's always said he doesn't have one, and that, because he's not one of them. But yeah, that she views that as his magic, I think is really cute. The kind of, the mundane, or at this point, kind of repetitive outcome of this fight is that they lose their ship again. Like, during the fight, their ship gets fired on and it gets busted up. And so ultimately, I was wondering for a second if we were going to do another episode where they have to find a ship again, and I was going to go crazy. But no, they end up just taking a Kempeitai ship. And it's said that it travels a lot faster than their ship, but really, you could have skipped most of this. You could have skipped this encounter, and it doesn't seem like anything really would have changed. They just can't hold on to a ship for more than one episode. It's really weird. So they finally get to this town that has a Tamagami, ball god, ball guardian, whatever, and the episode ends with Goku challenging it. It is kind of funny. They go to a town to eat first because Goku wants to eat and go to the bathroom before he fights before he fights. Which, again, that's a logical thing to do. I don't know why anybody would get mad at Goku for wanting to make sure he's prepared before he gets into this encounter. The food thing is, that is a good callback to everybody always being surprised that Goku wants to eat. But going to the bathroom, definitely a good thing to do before you commit to any long-term activity. Yeah, that's reasonable. But while they're eating, they question the waiter or the owner of the restaurant, I'm not sure, about, like, how do you challenge this guy? And he's like, oh, you just, well, they ask how to fight this guy, and he answers, but just by challenging him. And then, of course, he makes a joke about, oh, these kids don't understand how strong they are. It's so cute. It's just so cute. And so we do get a reaction shot when Goku does actually challenge the Tamagami, and even though he's not there, even though the owner, the shopkeep, the whatever, isn't there, because as soon as Goku even just speaks in front of the Tamagami, hasn't even challenged him yet, the Tamagami just screams at him to the point that the entire surrounding area shakes. And honestly, I find that more uncomfortable than the prospect of fighting one, because this is something you apparently can't just do in private. You can't get your ass whooped in private and then slink on home and go, hey, let's just pretend that never happened. The second that you want to do this, the guardian's gonna let everybody all your friends and family there's an ass whooping about to take place here. And I don't know if I can handle that. I can handle the ass whooping. I couldn't handle the bad attention. Please just leave me alone. But that is pretty much the show. So let me move over from my story notes into my trivia notes and see if there's anything I can mine out of this. I've been, when I've had time, I've pointed out, it seems to be a timing issue as to whether or not the show is going to have its sort of recap intro of, oh, this is Goku and he's a Saiyan and they fight and blah, 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 blah. This episode did not have one, but it did have a longer next episode preview. This show has had really, really quick, I think like 5-second long previews, and this one was, I think, double, which still isn't a lot, but it did surprise me. I don't know if that's because they ran a little short, but not short enough to do the recap, or if this is just the next episode's meant to be really important, so they wanted to show more of it off. I don't know. I don't have the time code in front of me for exactly how long the episode ran and how it compares to other episodes. Remember, I'm not working with a script. I'm not doing research here. I'm just talking. This is not Dragon Ball Dissection. This is Dragon Ball Me Talk About. Ooh, I should call this that. Dragon Ball Me Talk About. That's perfectly search engine optimized. I love it. Another new food item is introduced, Manpuku dumplings, which eating just one is the equivalent of 2 meals, and you see Goku's stomach expand when he eats 2 of them. And it is kind of funny because they have the sort of the revive bugs, which are mentioned in this episode as well, mentioned again in this episode. But if you remember, the original effect of Senzu when they're introduced is that eating one keeps you full for 10 days. And in fact, the visual image of a stomach expanding, well, that happened to Yajirobe in the Piccolo arc. He eats handfuls of Senzu and just completely, swells up. So it is interesting we've introduced another healing food and another magic fulfilling food. There is a line in here that's going to spark a lot of debate. Right after Goku, eats these dumplings and says, "Hey," and Pansy comments, "Hey, how many of those you're going to eat? You've already had 2 of them." And he's like, "I told you they're supposed to. Each one's supposed to fill you for 2 days." And Goku's like, "Yeah, I know. I'm almost getting full." And so she questions him actually being an adult and wonders how he could have possibly raised any kids. And Goku says, "I wasn't really involved." Which, oh gosh. I don't even want to get into that. I don't want to touch it. But, oh, why are we doing this? I'm not going to add to this. I'm just putting the information out here. That topic has been covered to death by everybody, maybe even me at this point. But here's just one more tidbit of information to throw on the pile. Goku himself saying he was not involved in the raising of his children. The collar that Pansy wears and Kaioshin breaks, Kaioshin identifies it's made of kachinko, or kachin steel, kachin being a clang sound effect and ko meaning steel, and we've encountered kachin in Dragon Ball before. It was introduced in the Buu arc. It's what the cube is made of that they create to test the Z sword with Gohan. It ends up breaking the Z sword, and then like a more refined version, kachin or kachin, something like that, is what's said to make up the Tournament of Power battle arena, I think. So yeah, that comes back here. More interestingly, Pansy is so overjoyed by having her collar removed that she wants to know what Shin's real name is. She recognizes that Shin is simply a name he uses in the outside world, which makes sense because obviously from the beginning it was kind of a shortening of Kaioshin. Shin is a reading of God. He reveals that his real name is actually Nahare. I like it. Dragon Ball has a lot of characters, usually of the martial arts master and or god variety, who just don't have names, don't have real personal names. It's kind of a fact that has been obscured if you've only watched the English dub of Dragon Ball, where a lot of these things are treated as names. Like Kami is not a name, it just means God. So it is interesting that we are finally, taking one of those characters at least and acknowledging that everything we've used to refer to them has just been titles. And now saying, okay, this is actually my real name. And I think it's really cute. And it's cute that Goku tries, like he immediately says, "Oh, that's your name? I'll call you that." And then he calls him that and then goes, "Yeah, that's weird to me. I'm just going to keep calling you Kaioshin-sama." And, well, you were close, Goku. You were close to being supportive. but clearly, he doesn't care. Kaioshin doesn't care one way or the other. So I think that's actually it. I don't know if this is ending up being any shorter than other episodes that I've covered. Lady Zeon, my friend Lady Zeon, also does weekly reviews of this, and she often teases me that we're apparently in some kind of race to get sub 20, like we're speedrunners, and she managed to do it like a few weeks ago, and I still have yet to make a Dragon Ball Daima video that's under 20 minutes. Well, I guess we'll see if I manage to hit the mark this time. Alright, so Dragon Ball Dissection December is about to start. I don't know if I'm gonna have time to keep doing these on a weekly basis going forward. Maybe, if I can, I will. If not, I'll have to combine all these into a video later on. We'll see. I don't know. I really don't know, but I just wanted to give you guys a heads up, just in case one of these doesn't show up next week. That'll be the reason why. Okay, I love you. Bye-bye. Mwah.